Oh, you think you get out of work tomorrow, Bones? I don't think so. You better get up, sunshine. I mean, come on. Fucking first day in the mill. First thing, you don't ever trust 100-foot skeletons, Tony. Ever. Never, not once.
Reserve yours now.
Yeah. Oh. New shoes. New shoes. When am I ever going to need this? I'm looking at your screenshot, and I think the answer is never. You are never going to need this. I'm Professor Moonduchin, mathematician. Today, I'm here to answer any and all math questions
very pretty,
on
isn't
Twitter. This is Math Support.
And this right here is what all these answers will sum to.
At
Now,
Records
just
Frisson says, what is an algorithm?
hang with me. I'm actually going to be using the book while she goes at these questions, so I might have to double tap it.
I'm going to keep it. A mathematician, what we mean by algorithm
NM.
is just
Well, I'm
any clear set
NM,
of
she's
rules,
MN,
a procedure
and
for
that's how
doing
you do this
something.
math
The word
correctly,
comes
because we're going to get
from
into it here in a
9th
minute.
century Baghdad, where Al-Khwarizmi, his
Yup.
name became
Yup.
algorithm. But he also gave us the word that became algebra.
Well, it's
He was just
pictograms
interested in
and
building up the science
stuff.
of manipulating
Okay,
what we
and that's
think
what
of
a
as
lot of this will
equations.
turn into
Usually when
today.
people
To
say
which
algorithm,
version of
they mean something
eschatology
more
you're dealing with it.
right?
So let me go
So
ahead.
usually
I
when
have
we have a
number
computer program,
in math meaning.
we
So
think
this
of
could
the
be 0 and
underlying
1. We
set
don't
of
know that yet.
instructions
It's the
as an
very
algorithm.
first
Given
mean
some
math
inputs,
problem
it's
we
gonna
have to
tell
get
you
through
kind of
about you
how to
bulldozing
make a
through
decision.
and
If
getting
an
what you
algorithm
can
is just like a
hang on
precise
to and
procedure
remember
for doing
if this is
something,
your first
then
time.
an example
Then we
is
got
a
not
procedure
equal,
that's so precise that a
inequality.
computer
We got
could.
equals,
At Llama
equal,
Lord
equality.
1091
And then we
asks,
have, of
how
course,
the
10,
fuck did the Mayans
right?
develop the
We have
concept of
10 is
zero?
not equal to
Everybody's
6,
got a
but 10
zero
is
in
equal
the
to
sense
6 plus
that
4.
everybody's got
And
the
6
concept of
is less than 10,
nothing.
but
The
10 is
math
greater
concept
than
of
6.
zero is
Now,
kind of
I
the
know it
idea
seems like
that
we haven't done
nothing
much
is
there,
a
and this is
number.
the
The
second
heart of
time
it
I've made
is
this for
how
some
do
of the
different
people that need to
cultures
just
incorporate zero
shush.
as a number. I don't know much about the Mayan
I hear
example
you. I hear
particularly,
you.
but you can see different cultures wrestling with is it a number?
And that's going to
What
be
makes it
how this
number?
rule works,
Math is
right? Because you're going to
decided
want to be able
kind
to
of
use that the
collectively.
same
Is
way
that
while
it is
talking
useful
about
to look at
math.
it as a number
Like,
because
without
people
knowing the
have these
operation of
things
why
deserve
it's
to be called
relative,
number.
we're just going to
At
get some
Just
numbers
Math
and
says,
fractions
how can math be
that
misused
might
or
be in the wrong
abused?
orientation
Because
to the
the reputation of
division,
math is just being,
right?
like,
We're going to
plain
get
right
down
and
here
wrong,
to
and also
why
being really hard. It
2
gives
thirds or
mathematicians
3
a
over
certain kind of
2,
authority,
or however I
and
have
we
that worked out
definitely
here.
see that being
50,
abused.
2
And this
over
is true
3
more and
is
more now that
666,
data
and then
science
3
is
over
kind
2
of
is
taking over the
1.5.
world.
They're very
But the flip
different
side
in the
of
way
that
that
is
they're the
that
same.
math is
And
being
when you do
used
one and
in
how you do
well.
one to
About
some of
5
this
years ago, I got
very
obsessed with
heavy
districting
material,
and gerrymandering
we're
and trying to
talking
think
about
about how you can use
hydrogen wave
math
function
models
here.
to better and
And
fairer
so excluding this
redistricting.
right at the moment,
Ancient math
language,
was being
culture,
used. You
system,
just close your eyes and do
characters,
random
there will
redistricting.
always be a
You're
base
not
to
going
it.
to get something
And
that's
some
very good
geometry
for
where somebody
minorities.
got
And now
off
that's
and then
become
some
much clearer
Euler's
with these
number pops
mathematical
up
models.
into
And
the
when you know that,
infinities
you can fix it. And I
of
think that's
the
an example of math being
derivative
used to kind of
that's in some
really go
power
in both
series of
directions.
x or y over
At
bar.
Crisp
Alright, so
X
we're not even going through
Crisp
this, but I
X
want you to
Phoenix.
read
That
it
was
and
hard to
kind of
say
read it
now
like
that
it's
I'm about it.
a
I honestly
field
have no
theory.
idea what math research looks like, and all I'm envisioning is a dude with a mid-Atlantic accent narrating over footage of guys in lab coats looking at shapes and like a number 4 on a whiteboard. There's this
We'll keep
fatal
this up.
error
We'll
at
need
the
this.
center of your
We'll
the
get
whiteboard.
back to
like,
that.
No, mathematicians are fairly united on this point of disdaining whiteboards together. So we really like these beautiful
it's
things
super
called
hard.
chalkboards. And we
Sharing
especially
chalkboards.
like this beautiful fetish
It winds up being an
Japanese
MIT or
chalk.
Berkeley
And then when
final
you write,
exam
it's really
as of the
smooth.
terms and symbols
Things
of
that
numbers
are
and
fun about
ratios
this,
in the
like
class.
the colors are really vivid, and also it erases well, which matters. You just
So this is a
feel
very
that much
specific
smarter
ASVAB
for
test for
execution.
special
One thing I would
forces,
say about math
realistically.
research that
Starting with the
probably is
Putnam,
little
this
known is
NM
how
stuff.
collaborative
I know,
it is.
right?
Typical
It's like,
math papers
why
have
not
multiple
start
authors,
with
and we're just working
a
together all
chart
the time.
that
It's kind of fun
is
to look back at the paper correspondence
nice
of
and clean
mathematicians from, like,
inside of the
100 years
system,
ago,
right?
who were actually
And
putting
it's
all
like,
this,
well,
like, cool
honestly, you
math
have to
into
understand
letters
what
and
they
sending them back and
did
forth. We've done this
before
really good
you
job
get
of
to
packaging
9
math
volts
to teach it, and
is
so that
less
it looks
than,
like it's all done and clean
but
and
or
neat. But
less
math
than but
research
equal
is,
to
like,
9,
messy and
or 9 volts
creative and
is greater
original
than
and
but
new, and
equal
you're
to
trying to figure
9
out
in
nothing's
orientation
learned
and
how to put this
position
together in
of
new ways.
this
It looks nothing like the math
first
school,
order
which is
here
sort of
and
a
first
monster
order
college
here. Now, what if you see
after the
them both
fact
in the same
finished product
equation
version
to
of
the
something that's
orientation
actually,
and
like,
position of those
out there
systems?
and messy and weird.
Right? Very tight
So
inside here.
Dylan
I can't
Jellicoe
zoom in.
says, serious question that sounds like it's not a serious question. for mathematicians
You're digging up
and
bones.
engineers. Do people use imaginary numbers to build real things?
Sure.
Yes, they do.
You know,
You can't do much without them. In particular,
okay, you can do
equation
pretty much
solving
everything
requires
without them,
these things.
but
They got called imaginary at some point because just people didn't know
yeah,
what to do with them.
no,
There were
when
these concepts
I'm
that you
doing
needed to be able to handle
again
and
this Putinum, and
manipulate,
I've turned
but
this
people didn't
Putinum
know whether
into
they
12
could count
problems
as
that are
numbers.
5 problems that are
Here's the
a
usual
lot
number
of
line that you're
problems,
comfortable with,
right? You
0,
know, so
1,
we got
2,
n.
so
Well,
on.
n here
Real
is the
numbers
imaginary
over
number
here.
until
And then
you get
just
to
give me
make the
this
realization that
number up
mn
here
or
and call
nm
it I.
is equal to
That gives me
23,
a building block
right?
to
You know,
get
because they're
anywhere.
the
So now
same
I can
thing,
compute
but
it.
in
This
two
would be
different
like
positions
3
in space-time.
2i.
And so very
So I
vast
is now the
different
building
vectors,
block
but
that
we
can
have to
get me
build
anywhere
those
in
vectors in common before we
Yes,
can agree
every
with the same
bridge
number,
and
and that
every
number is
spaceship and all the
imaginary.
rest.
I like to
Like,
use
you better hope it's the one
SCP-055, right?
handle imaginary
That one you
as
can't think about,
At
I don't know what it is, but I can
Club
invert
Mini
everything
says,
around it.
hashtag movie errors that
Right?
bug me.
And I'll generally know
Set the
somethings
equation
about it.
down on the
Because
third
is it
chalkboard
Jenna
in a
Estefa as an
beautiful line.
SCP?
Was
No. Is it
erroneously
Dave
shown
on a
with two extra
$25,000
variables and incomplete
or
constants.
$2,500 loan from the bank with a
I will say, though, for me and
PRI
lots
or
of
PRT?
mathematicians,
No.
watching the math
Is it the
in
ratio of
movies
men
is
and
a
women in
really
the city
great
with
tool.
Stefa? It's all of
What's
those.
going on here is I see a bunch of sums. I see some
You know, so we're going to get into
derivatives,
this not
some
being
about
part
John
of the
Nash,
Putinum in the
who's
arithmetic
actually
series,
famous for
the
a bunch
law of
things in
exponents, and we're going to
math
go
world.
through this
One of them is, like,
fundamentally. I
the
want you to
inferior
have it
ideas
in the
in
scale.
economics,
Part of this
but I do
thing
not think
is,
that's what's on the
this
board
is already
here,
2
I
scale.
guess.
You're going to have to
I
find
think
out
what he's doing
how to
is
do the
earlier,
mechanics
very important work of
in
his,
scale. And you wouldn't think
this is like
about where
Nash
all that
and
math is
Fermi.
going, or some of
So
those
this is like
heavy duty
fancy geometry.
things.
You
And
can't
they'll
tell.
be in
It's
very
like a bunch
super
of
simple
sums and
things,
squiggles.
right?
You're
Just this
missing the
cable,
part of the board
energize
that
your body.
defines the terms.
We can make
So,
that
do
algebra
I
super
agree with
complicated.
Jake
Now once I got
that
you on that
stuff is
fundamental,
missing
and
from
with
I
A1
don't
using
think that I do.
using
Sorry, Vinny.
22 over
At
7 where the
ADHS
sum
Cat
of the
Club
first
asks,
7
question,
primes,
without
so
using
we're going
numbers
to
and
have
without using a
0,
search engine,
1,
do you
2,
know how to
or
explain
0,
what
well
pi
you can't,
is in words?
0, 1,
You
2,
sort of
3,
need pi or
3,
something
5,
like it
7,
to
11,
talk
9,
about
whatever
any
prime is. This
measurements
is a
and
math
circles.
fight. You're
Everything
going to
you wanna
integrate
describe
ER
about round things,
in the
you need pi to
BU
make it precise.
with the
Circumference, surface
MMA,
area, area,
octagon,
volume,
pentagon.
anything that relates
Okay, so this is
length to
string
other
theory,
measurements
right? This
on
the
circles
environment
needs
of
pi.
us
Here's a fun one.
both
So what if
talking
you
about
took
math.
4
We both know it
and you
doesn't matter the
subtracted
orientation and position
4
that yet,
thirds,
because it
and
really
then you
doesn't
added
matter.
back 4/5,
I bring up
and then you
Euler's
subtracted
number
4
and minus
sevenths,
bx,
and so on.
right? And
So it
she's
turns
going
out
to
that if you
reference the
kept
hard
going
line.
forever,
It's
this
like in the
actually
same way, this number is that number in 2 different
So this is
forms.
what's called a power
Could be the
series,
pressure,
and
could
it's-
be the
it's pretty
temperature,
much like all the
could
originators
be
of calculus were kind of
a
thinking
lot
this
of
way
things
about these
integrated to
things.
that XY
It's another way
platform
to
of
think
an
about pi if
Engling's
you like
number,
are
or
allergic to circles.
how we will
And
begin
Chris
to
is the
talk
only
about
one
a
that wrote
photoelectric effect
why do
where
math people have to connect
at that
to
pulling the
because
cable
it is
level.
so convenient. It completes us. Could we do math without
Well,
infinity? The fact that the numbers
it's actually
go on
this little
forever,
hillbilly spinner
1,
here,
2, 3,
but
4,
we can
dot,
do
dot,
that.
dot, it would be pretty hard to do math without the dot dot dots. In other words, without the idea of things that
This
go
guy
on
right
forever.
here,
Kinda
which is
need that.
one
Maybe
product
they
line
have
on
to,
2
like,
different
create a
systems, or
symbol
the
for
same
it
system
and
and
create
2
an
different
arithmetic
jobs
around
doing
it
it.
and
Who's
create,
X
like,
bar?
a geometry for it
Right?
where there's, like, a
What's
way
what's
to
the line we're gonna take
That
that
was
says
optional,
1
but it's
or
pretty
0
at
or
the
you know
Phil
sigma
Lewis.
I
What is the
equals
sexiest equation?
0?
I'm gonna
You
show
know,
you
you'll see this,
an
but the reality of what it
identity or a
is,
theorem
E0
that
to E1
I
is
love.
attached
I
to
just
the
think it's
arm
really pretty
on
and
the
that I
system
use
is
a
the
lot. So
geometry,
this
and
is
it's a
about
very
surfaces
different
and
type
the
of geometry.
of surfaces.
So we can get into
Like
geometry.
This is called Minsky's product regions theorem. So this is a kind
That's
of
all
almost
inverted, right?
equality that we really like in
Oops,
my kind of
too
math.
far. Whoopee. That's for somebody else.
The picture that goes along with this theorem looks
So
something
again, with this
like
geometry, we're gonna be getting into the Pharaoh's hut, Princess Peach's pot hut here, in the square,
This is called a
yeah,
Genus
cylinder,
surface. It's like a double energy.
extruder,
Sort of like 2 hollow donuts kind of
starting line here for the
And so
cookie
this is telling
factory.
you what
I've
happens
been
when
using
you take some
Mallows for
curves like the ones
GearWorks
that I've colored
in terms
here.
of the
Squeeze them
client
in. So
bottle,
it's the thin
the
part,
Infinity.
first set of curves.
If
And
we
it's telling
needed
you
that, that's the real thing
this
now. Obviously,
looks
he's
just
going to
like
be
what would
spinning
happen
with the
if
Force
you, like,
Jedi.
pinch them all the way off
And if you catch
cut
that,
open
you're
the
probably
surface
going to be
there,
able to throw
you'd
that
get something
that Senate
simpler
seat
and a
at
leftover
Peloton.
part
I don't
that is
remember
well
his name.
understood.
Well, at Peloton. If I
Absent
tell you to get running, you're
what
going to
if blockchain is just a plot by math majors to convince governments, VC funds, and billionaires to give money to low-level math research.
Depending on how you want to do it.
And here's how I know.
You
We're
add another
really
line there,
bad
blow it up,
at
pop it right in
telling
here,
the
circle,
world what we're
line.
doing,
That's
and
trigonometry.
instead, like,
You
getting
bet
money
you're
for it.
behind this.
Most people could tell you something about new physics ideas, new chemistry, new biology ideas.
Once we had,
from,
I
say,
had you
the
locked
20th
up in the area
Well,
in a
people probably
tent
think
with
there
the
are
bricks
lots of
on you to
things
build the,
about it,
the
right? There
place
are
because you
breakthroughs
know
in
it's
math.
what you're going to look at,
One of the
everything downrange,
breakthrough
no matter where
ideas
you're going to
from
put
the
it.
20th century is, turns out there aren't
Or
three
she's going to let you put it.
basic
Mod.
three-dimensional geometries. There are 8 flat, like a piece of paper, round, like a sphere,
Okay,
and then the third one
so
looks like a Pringle. It's this hyperbolic geometry, or like saddle shape. Another one is actually, instead of
we're
a
still going to
single
have an
Pringle,
FMA problem. There's one
you
specific
pass
about
to a
that. It's
stack
right
of
down here at the
Pringles.
bottom of this.
So like this. So we call this H2 crossover.
Okay, what do you
Put
mean?
these all
What are you
together
talking
and
about,
get a
Murphy? Well,
three-dimensional
I'll show you.
geometry. And then the last
The
three
geometry
are
you're
nil,
looking at
this
there
guy
is
over
on this
here,
gal right here.
Sol, which is a little bit like
And
nil,
it's
but
specifically
hard.
in
And then the last one,
in
which
this probability
I kid you
math
not, is
problem
called
of probability.
SL2R
Listen to
twiddle.
me, sniper.
Really, that's
0 equals
Finally,
impossible.
it's
The
proved
probability
to,
of
like,
everything being
satisfaction
0,
what
all
is
the way
now
0,
called the
no.
geometry
200
station.
and, negative
The idea of how you
273
can
c
build
is gold,
stuff
and you're
out
going
of
to have
these
to
eight
turn
kinds
that
of
into that environment.
worlds.
So for
So
sure,
one
this is a
example
decimal. When somebody
of
gives me
the
this, I'm
was the
usually
competitions are
questioning
real.
unless I know
Did
it's a
we invent
0, right?
blockchain
Because
to,
that's the
like,
game
get money
inside of
for
here
ourselves?
for
No,
the
we did not.
the
At
simple
Riley
event, which is
Alonza
just a
is
period.
geometric
You know, I'm
research
just going to
just
give you a set of
Annabellian
numbers, and you're going to
topology.
pick
And
out
then
the big
there's this,
one.
like,
It is
my
always
absolute
that
favorite
number. It is
part of this
bar. Give me the
is
big one.
the
Who
laughing,
was it? What's
crying
it correlated
emoji,
to?
because
We'll
Riley is
find
just,
this
like,
number
cracking
next to the
herself up
name.
here. Well, Riley's, I think,
And
really
this is going to
saying
be
here
a
has to
complex
do with
event.
just, like,
And again, I'm
how
just
much
giving you
things
the mean.
commute, right?
The
So
mean of the same
you're
set of
used to A
numbers is
equals BA.
66.6.
That's when things commute. And
And
then
fun.
you can sort of do math where that's not true anymore. Where, like,
The
you know,
independent.
AB
Well,
equals
who do you want me to put in that
BA times a new
trigonometry
thing
problem
called
again?
C.
0 and 1.
That's just not the math you learned in school.
Okay,
What is
so
this
if
new
you,
thing
all
and-
right
and
then,
how do
just
you
be sure.
understand it? Well, it turns out
Independent,
this is the math of this model here.
dependent events. Okay, and what I
This
have here is
a model of what's
unaffected
called
by
nil, or nil
occurrence equals
geometry.
independent.
It's pretty cool. As I
If it was
rotate
unaffected,
you probably
we
see
kind of kept
that there's some
blowing through what we
complexity
were
here. From
doing.
some
Well,
angles
they
it
are,
looks
but they're
one way,
also
from some
in this
angles it's
statement
different kinds of
a
structure.
mutually
This is my
exclusive
favorite.
event.
I love to think
She's
about
running
this one. A
the
and B
1, 2,
are kind of
3s, and I'm
moving
running the
horizontally,
2,
and
4,
C is kind of
6s,
moving
right?
up
You
in
know,
this model.
in that way, they
So
are
that really
all
shows
in the
you
number
something about
line.
what Riley's
But
calling
I'm
geometric
doing
group
some
theory.
stuff that
You
is
start
mutually
with
exclusive,
just like the group
and
theory of how to multiply things, and it builds geometry for you.
But is it hilarious?
Like, no.
what is it?
It's sort of stringing a
Complementary
bunch of words
events,
together
which
and
is
trying to make a
E1
meaning out of them, and I think that's the
E1
joke
plus
here.
S
And like all
minus
jokes, when
1.
we try to
You could
explain
take
it,
either
it
one of
sounds
these
desperate.
parts out, and you could take out some combinations inside of there, and it's always in the probability, for sure, for
Math
sure.
problems in a particular order of operation.
I know that by some of these
Why
derivatives,
multiplication
right?
first?
Let's say
This
we,
is
we
like
kept this
asking
going
in a
flat,
chess
you know,
game, how
do
come
these
bishops
first,
move
but this one's
diagonally?
first.
It's
You'll need
because
2
over
different
time,
sets of
those
an
rules were
operation.
developed
Sometimes
and
that
they
happens
produced a
in
pretty
life.
good
Make sure
game.
you
I
give
could make up
yourself
a chess game
another
where the
version.
bishops
Like,
move
if you do
differently.
see that this
But
is
then it
this,
would be
they'll
my burden to show
understand
it
that
to the
the
game.
10
We
is
could do
bigger here for
arithmetic
whatever
differently,
reason
and
on the
we do it in
planet.
math all the time. We set up other
And
number
we're going to
systems
subtract
with
that
other
person
arithmetic.
later.
You just
But
have
you
to
will
show
have to
that
run
they
these
have
through.
some internal
See,
consistency,
I thought this
that
one
you
was
build a
due
good
first. It
theory around
is.
them,
And
maybe
when
that
this
they're
one's
useful
not
for
there,
modeling
and if it
things
is ever in
the
that
world,
without
and then
needing a
this
third set,
hey,
you're going to
Irene,
get 10,
how's
10
math
again,
supposed to be
10
universal?
minus 4
See
is
what
6.
scholarships you
See how that
qualify
works,
for.
kid? You tried to
Find
give
your
me
purpose
6
at
things, and I was like, no, 6 things are not 10 things.
gcu.edu/myoffer.
The killer left this for the Batman.
And
Why is
keep you
writing
going
shit?
forever.
Man, now playing beaters.
Universal when all our teachers in the same state.
So
teach
we'll get
different.
into the plus or
The thing
minus, and I'm going to
about
work that
math
with
being
6,
universal,
10s,
there might
3s,
be,
whatever
like, 10
keeps it
different ways to
tightest
do
at the
long division to
lowest
get the
base
answer,
level I
right?
can get to it,
We're
or at least I
trying
was thinking at the
to
time.
stabilize math around the world.
Because we're trying to
take
stabilize it.
lots of different
Now,
mathematical
again,
practices
don't let those
and
math
turn them
equations
into
of some math
something
teacher
where
putting
we
this
have
grid
enough
together
consensus
with
that we
alpha
can
second, right?
At
Right?
Shandwich says
First
music
step's a
is
doozy.
just math
You
that
might have to change things around
quite
or condense
sharply with
things
that.
by
But
the
there is a lot
derivatives.
of
Here, I
math
gave you a nice
in
little
music.
set that
If you
started
think
to
about
get you into the
constructing
3.
notes notes that are
then
gonna sound good,
a set
to a
of
mathematician,
nth
you're
number
just
in a
doing
fourth,
rational approximations
where
to
they
logarithms.
do to the
Transcendental
root
numbers,
that you're
again,
running
like pi. Numbers that
on
can't be made into
different
exact
ways. You'll see
fractions, you
times,
can only
right? Did I want to
approximate
do
it
them
in
all?
order to
No, and I don't
decide
need them
on
all.
the
I don't
distances
need that
between
many for the
keys on a
comprehensive
keyboard. In order
base
to make
step
it
for
sound
hydrogen.
good, we're trying
I
to
don't need a bunch of
approximate
different
something
derivatives.
that
I'll just
is a number
change
that
the
can
form.
be
I'll
exactly
call it
captured.
derivative y over
There's a
derivative
lot to
x,
say
obviously.
about the math that's in music.
Or the
As to
limit
the rest
of
your
the value
proposition,
function is what
I
you see
will
before that. But then
just,
it's derivative
trust you on that.
y over derivative n,
That
which is
took
second
two
first,
to
with minus
How does math make
seconds
sense?
plus but equal t.
Why
Now,
put a
that's
fraction
important to
on top of
understand
another
why I gave you
fraction?
this Euler's
When am I
number
ever
up
gonna
top
need
here.
this? That
You're going to
is
go
like
check out digging some
the
numbers of
thing
the
that math
the 50th
like
decimal
6 divided by
and
2.
running
That's a very basic thing
every
you like
number
to
to it from
And so the
every
math people come along and
component
say,
value
well, what
that
if I put in
I
different
have an
kinds of
x
numbers?
bar for.
What is 6 over
Some
minus 2?
prime
But that's what mathematicians do.
sequence
We
where it
take
helps them in
a
life do a
system
thing,
and we
adjust
just,
it back
like,
over.
try to put in other kinds
And
of
that
inputs
derivative
wasn't
is necessary
expected.
to not deal with the
Teach me how to
Faro
add,
stuff
and
under the
then
bricks.
I come along and I
Right?
wanna
I'll
add
throw it
shapes.
up there.
You're like,
The
you don't
gym.
add shapes,
Okay.
you add numbers. And I'm like, why? We're gonna do it every time. We can't be stopped.
Yep.
When am I ever gonna need this? Looking at your
Well,
screenshot,
it's a team
and
thing.
I
It's a
think the
table.
answer is never.
It's like you have
Or
to
never.
still look at the board like it's
At
X
Neil
or
Vaughn
prime
first,
to
a
it. And
question
like
for
every once in a while you get
zero
up in
and
the.
odd or
There
even
are real
number.
officers.
Even number
There's
is
this
any number
moment
that
as
can be
well
written
with
as
the
2
gorillas
times
out
k,
there
or k
doing
is a
what
whole.
gorillas do.
Zero's even if zero's a whole number.
Yeah.
Zero a whole number, and you get down to
It
round.
depends on if we
Zero's
talk
even
about
'cause
it.
it's
And
convenient
it'll come up
for
in
some
tone
things.
real odd,
It's
right?
definitely
It's like.
different from
We
the
know
rest of the
that
numbers you're
it's
not
something in the derivative
At
time,
depths,
well, here I use derivative x to the
Who's the
power
greatest
series over
mathematician in
time,
history? Does anybody
right?
know?
You know, I
And
want
if
the
so,
derivative
why?
over
There are
time
all kinds of
before I want the derivative
incredibly
over
interesting
anything
people
else.
that are not well
And
enough
you,
known.
you'll see it in
So I'm just
equations
gonna
like
tell you
that.
about a
There's,
few,
if you
like, of my
condense it to
favorites.
this,
Felix
there
Hausdorff,
would be
he's
steps
awesome.
missing. But
He
remember,
basically
the first
built
part is
the
reliant
math plan
on
fractal
this,
and did all
because
kinds of
otherwise
really
I'm
basic stuff
secondary
that was never
officers into the
Any
set
note
at
there, you cannot go wrong
y
with
prime and
Luther.
x
She's so
prime
nice.
and
She's a
x equals
great
0, x but
mathematician,
not equal to
had kind of
1,
a cult
and it
following.
can be
Her math
bigger
is
at
great.
Faro,
Her ideas are deep. She,
PH, L,
like,
that get
is
the
a very
triangles out.
powerful builder of abstraction, and I think you can't go wrong learning about Emmy Noether. Math is full of
It's good stuff.
these
Tip
really
of the spears,
colorful
right?
characters having like out of
Points.
control, original, great ideas.
You'd be like,
Great
points.
if we figured out how to tell their stories. At
So this will run through, and I want you to
says,
just read it at your own pace. Space
if there are
first,
infinite
minus
amount of
seconds,
points
plus or
between
minus
two
t,
points,
or
but we can
plus
still walk from
and
point A to
minus
point
t,
B,
which
do
would
we
be
walk
t
from
over
infinite?
s, because
Get
we're going to
there.
have to start
How
with
do we
the
get anywhere?
derivative time
This is an
space.
old and deep question. The idea that math is
I only
math
got a
is
short
math,
time
and
here,
it's
so
universal,
we're
and
going to
it's all
have
the
to
same,
first
and it's all
hack through the
figured out.
derivative
Hides a lot
time
of
there
mess,
to
and this is
deal
a
with
good
the power
example.
series
The
y,
theories that
derivative
let you
s,
do that let you
derivative
describe
over
how
derivative
points combine to
a,
make a line,
which
were
you're going to go
actually
back to n
controversial
or
and
2
took
over
hundreds
n
and
in the
hundreds
base
of
stuff of the
years
Putnam
to kind of work out
to get
people's
here.
satisfaction. The best way
D.
to explain
Alright, so
how math has built
power
structure to answer
series
this
of
question
a bar
is
when you get to
calculus. It's
d
about the
a
difference
d b,
between
and I want you to go
durations
through
and
that like you're
instants.
fighting a
So
bar,
the
then you're
difference between
fighting a
lines
couple of
and
bars,
calculus
then
and
you're
what comes after
fighting
it
the whole
measure
concept
those
of
are the
bars
ways
for
that
a
mathematicians have
derivative
built
over derivative
to
c, for
At
derivative of
Alejandro
derivative
says,
I have
I have a question
dA2
for
over dt.
mathematicians. Why
It's like you
letters
got
in
the
an
numbers
equation?
on
It's
the
kinda
clock there,
This
so.
is one of those great
The
examples
derivative
where
of
it didn't have
derivative
to be this
alpha
way,
is a
but,
force
like,
over
some people
x. I'm
made
looking
some
for the
decisions
d
and they
number
caught
of
on
time.
and they
It's like
traveled around the
basically
world
exposure to
and were like,
radiation,
well, it'd be kinda
or
nice if we
basic
all did it the same
radiation
way.
d over
And so
dt
letters
for
come along.
force
This is
over
very
time.
arbitrary. It's
The
just a
end of
convention,
heat
and
works
we
like
kind of all
gamma,
agreed that we'd do it the
right?
same way.
It's going to
Those
be
are
like
all
melting
the
your face.
questions for today, so thank you to Math Twitter.
And then you're going to keep
And
going
thanks
with
for
that
watching
to
Math
dt, dx, and some partial derivatives, and have some fun with it if you know what you're doing.